Greetings, our Frederick Riddle here with another episode of Christian News and Views. And today's episode is episode 111. So, I'm going to be talking today about something that's rather unusual. You don't see too much of this these days, and I thought it was especially interesting. Uh, and so I'm going to get into it, and I don't know how much I'm going to comment on this. It almost speaks for itself, so I'll see. Um, President Donald Trump's major tariffs on foreign made automobiles and parts found a surprising ally in a long-time political foe, United Auto Workers President Shawn Fain. While he slammed Trump's order to end collective bargaining for federal workers during a CBS interview Sunday, he heaped praise on the president at an appearance at a Detroit university. Yes, I disagree with Donald Trump on virtually everything, but tariffs are one thing I don't disagree on, Fain said at Wayne State University, according to the Detroit Free Press. We've begged Democrats, we've begged Democrats, politicians, whatever, for years to do something to get these companies in line. Fain, who famously wore a shirt to a former Vice President Kamala Harris rally that read, "Trump is a scab, vote Harris," and who Trump said should be fired during his convention speech, called the president the first in his lifetime to eliminate problematic trade deals with like NAFTA. I'm not going to sit here now and say that since he's a Republican or because he's Donald Trump, I'm going to say screw you. That's not how we do things. It's having integrity, he said, according to the paper. Fox News Digital reached out to Fain via the UAW for further comment. Trump instituted 25% tariffs on outsourced cars and auto parts last week, which is primed to hit domestic brands like Chevrolet, which now produces vehicles in Mexico, like the popular Equinox, and shuttered its major Lordstown, Ohio assembly plant in 2020. Other manufacturers like Mack Trucks still make their vehicles in the U.S. with Bulldog branded manufacturing rigs at their longtime main plant in Macungie, Pennsylvania, and their powertrain facility in Hagerstown, Maryland. While Fain reportedly said automakers cannot essentially wave a wand and reboot domestic production, he also said there is no reason U.S. automakers need to uh, raise prices to withstand the financial hit. He called out corporate greed in that regard while adding Dodge had produced its Ram trucks in Warren, Michigan for decades and does not need to suddenly move Ram overflow south of the border either. In fairness to the companies, they can't just close a factory and open a brand new factory overnight. But there are a lot of opportunities right now. Fain alleged automakers used the COVID-19 price spike to price gouge up to 40% for no reasons. They've made massive profits for a decade, and all they see here is an opportunity. It's a choice. They could shift that work back to Warren tomorrow and produce trucks there. Those are the things that can happen immediately. A White House spokesman said the administration welcomes Fain on board when it comes to tariffs. We're glad that UAW leadership has finally recognized what's long been clear to UAW members. President Trump backs America's blue-collar workers, and America's blue-collar workers back President Trump, said spokesman Kush to say. When asked about potential price hikes and cases of U.S. Automakers making vehicles abroad that could be hurt by said tariffs, Desai said iconic automakers like Stellantis and Hyundai have already responded to President Trump's America First economic agenda of tariffs, deregulation, tax cuts, and the unleashing of American energy with tens of billions in historic Made in America investment commitments. Desai added that Trump's push for Americans to be able to deduct taxes on U.S. made cars will drive the onshoring of manufacturing and job growth without systematic inflation, just as President Trump's policies did during his first term. Now, here's my opinion, and it's not very long. It might get longer. I like this. I like it when, and I consider it refreshing when opponents can see good in the other side. Doesn't mean you have to become friends or out and out allies. Mr. Fain has seen the positive effects of targeted tariffs, and though he disagrees on just about everything else Trump, he sees and supports President Trump's tariffs on automobiles. Now, why do I consider that such an amazing thing? Well, it's because of the times we live in. We're so polarized these days, and we close our eyes to the good idea here or a good idea here. It's either he's totally wrong or he's totally right, and there's no area for finding common ground. I've long argued that they're old-time politicians, old-time business people, and union people have always managed to find common ground. You trace back to UAW. Now, I'm from Michigan, so UAW is home territory there. Even during their times in which they had some pretty violent times, confrontations, UAW with the car dealers, they still found time to sit down at a table and negotiate. And they worked out treaties. Now, yes, UAW had to hold a club over the companies. And the companies, by the way, had their own clubs that they could hold over. It was sometimes a battle royal. But they managed to find a time where they could come together and negotiate and find an agreement, a contract that was acceptable for both parties. Did both parties always win outright? No. Did the businesses win over the union at any time? There might have been some times when they did. I went to work for Western Electric, not UAW, but I had a union, and when I went there, I came in shortly after they had had a strike. That was one of those times in which the company actually came out ahead. The workers actually lost some money in that in the contract that they had settled just prior to my coming on. Now, that's not always the case. A lot of times the unions got wage increases, but they didn't always get what they wanted. They didn't get what they wanted to have. Yeah. So excuse me on that. That was somebody calling in, and I don't have time for that particular call right now. But it was a classic case where the union overplayed their hand and they lost money. There's been other times they've gotten pay raises, sometimes substantial, but rarely did they get everything they wanted. There had to be an area of compromise. One of the things that I remember growing up, and I don't know if people believe this anymore, but in sports and things of this nature, it was always said, shoot higher than where you think you can get to. So say you're here and you think you can get to here, well, shoot to here. If you shoot for here, you've got a better chance of getting here. But if you shoot for here, you'll probably end up down here. I used to get upset with the Detroit Red Wings about that, and probably the other teams as well, because it always seemed that they would be shooting for this level, which was where they really wanted to be. But if they had shot for this level, they might have made it. But year after year, they would shoot for this level. Well, we think we can get there. We think we can get into the playoffs. And so they would shoot for that, and they would fall just short. But if their aim had been higher, the belief back in those days, and I still believe it, they would have made, they would most likely have made it into the playoffs. How far they would have gone, you never know. When you get into the playoffs, the whole thing is all, it starts all over. So the thing is, what I'm saying here is that this is a throwback in a sense, where this Mr. Fain has gone back to those days of looking and seeing, finding something. In fact, if you notice there, he also gave benefit of the doubt and some credit to the businesses themselves. He pointed out some hardships that they would have to do to accomplish certain things. But he also pointed a finger, and I agree with this. There are businesses out there, and they may even be good businesses normally, but they saw an opportunity during COVID, and that's not the only time. Other emergencies and so forth, companies see um, opportunities to raise their rates and their prices, and it's not justified by anything else. It's just an opportunity. It's called greed, and I think greed does play a role. Unfortunate, but we do live in a human society, and human beings are very greedy. And that's true on the business side, and that's true on the union side. That's true on the Democratic side, and that's true on the Republican side. It's true. By the way, I think I go one more step. It's true on the unsaved side, the non-Christian side, and it's also unfortunately, but we see it in the Christian side. Christians are human beings as well, and we can operate out of greed if we're not careful, if we don't pay attention to what the Lord is telling us in His Word. And so that's something that we need to be careful of and watch. The whole tone of this is really beneficial, and I don't know that how many of the auto workers support President Trump, but a lot of them do. Even when I was back in the Western Electric and I was in the union there, uh, I would say a good share of those union workers supported Republican principles and ideas. Just because you're a member of the union, don't make you an automatic vote for the Democratic Party. Although the Democratic Party, I assumed that. So the thing is this: that it is a good and refreshing thing to see grown men and women who can actually talk to one another over the din, over the noise, and sit down at a table and look one another in the eye. And they can say, well, I don't agree with you there. I don't agree with you there. But this little bitty spot right here, we've got something we can talk about. That is good, because it leads to maybe that becoming a little bit wider. Maybe some understanding comes from it. They don't necessarily agree, but maybe it comes to a point where saying, I understand what you're saying. Maybe we can soften this a little bit, and so make it, if you'll commit to this, we can soften this. And that has how some good compromises come out. Now you got to be careful on either side, because you don't want to give away the horse to save the buggy. This thing it requires some intelligence, but when you can sit down and literally look in somebody's eye and say, here's somewhere, a place where we have something in common, something we agree upon, let's explore that and see if there's more we can talk about. That's not unreasonable, folks. That is something that's good, and I am certainly glad that has happened. In this day and age, where everything is so polarized that there's hardly any opportunity whatsoever for the two sides to come together. You're a Democrat. I'm a Republican. Yeah, I don't want anything to do with you. Well, my father-in-law was a Democrat. Now he changed later on. He became a Republican, but he was a Democrat at first. And he was, in my opinion, he was a very godly man. Um, he saw the light. But you know what? One of the things is I didn't get away in the way of that. In fact, I think he had already made that transition by the time I met him. But the thing is, if you let somebody see um, that their opinion, what they're seeing, give them time to actually see it and see how it works and so forth. If they are reasonable people, they will say, "Oh, wait a minute, that's not what I signed up for." And they start to back away and start looking around a little bit here and there and say, "Oh, maybe I should move over here, or maybe I better move over here." And they start looking at different options, and they become more reasonable, more focused, and you can talk to them. And my father-in-law, he was, like I said, he was a godly man. He was, and both him and his wife, she was a godly woman. And so these were things in which really impacted me as a new member of that family. when I and so that didn't change. That didn't. He just suddenly didn't become that kind of a man. That came from his Christian walk. That came from his love for God and the Word of God. And so we have to be careful about labels. Um, as one thing I saw about being careful about book covers, things of this nature. It's very easy for us to point fingers at somebody. I have a friend in which I've told him, if I point one finger at you, I have three pointing back at me. and that, and a lot of times I would say those three really would really hit me. So you got to be careful when you're pointing fingers at somebody. Instead of pointing fingers, why not reach your hand out in a handshake and say, "Let's talk." And so if we can see more of that in our government and in our business, things could really change. And that comes, by the way, that comes also in relations between Christians and non-Christians. Don't be so quick to throw non-Christians under the bus. And you non-Christians, if there's any out there watching me, don't be so quick to throw us under the bus. Look, watch, see how God works in our life. And those of us who are dealing with, maybe we may know people who are not Christians, we need to look at those who are non-Christians. They are needy. They need our love, our understanding, our compassion. And if you give that to them, they're going to listen to you. There's a young lady out there, I don't know if she ever watches this or not, but there's a young lady out there who listened to me. Why? I extended friendship to her. And I would listen to her. We were able to talk to one another. And there came a day when I was able to share the gospel with her and she got saved. If I had pointed fingers at her or just shook my head off and I don't want anything to do with you, well, she may never have heard the gospel. We need to be willing to listen to the other side, talk to the other side in a calm way, and then say, "Oh, by the way, I'd like to share something with you." Their chances of their listening to you has gone up, way up, compared to what it would have been. And so that's why I really think this is it may be a breakthrough. We'll just have to see. He's top dog there in the UAW, and so that means he carries some weight and has some influence. And we'll just have to see how this goes. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could truly be a great nation again? Now, I love Donald Trump. I think he's going to be a great president. He was the first time around. But only God can make this country a great country again. Our faith in God is what is necessary. We need a revival. So pray for it, But who knows? If if they can talk to one another, maybe we can talk to one another and see a revival break out. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope too also that you right down here, right down below me here, you have an opportunity to uh, subscribe to my channel, TR Independent Books. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. And just know this, that when you do, you get two podcasts. You get two for one. Christian News and Reviews, which you're watching, and Becoming a Published Author is fun. My other one, which I give away information, hints, ideas to how to do different things, all for free. And so I encourage you to subscribe, and I will promise you this. I will do all my power to create episodes that will inform you, encourage you, and inspire you. And that is my promise to you, and I'll see you in the next episode.